Good morning, this is Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Today is Friday, March 17th, and today we are going to go back and we are going to look at the prize pick results for the last 2 days, which is going to be March 16th and March 15th. And we're going to look at the prize pick results versus the FanAlarm projections, FanPros projections, Roto projections, and our cheat sheet projections, and just kind of see how they did. So I've got the 315 sheet pulled up, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So we have the prize pick line over here. So we have the player, what the prop was, the line. This is the result, and if it was over or under, we highlight it green or red. These are DVP stats, which we won't talk about in this video. These are the cheat lines that we have. Last 7-day average, so you can tell if a player is hot or cold. And then these are the 3 different projection sites versus the line, so you can kind of see the difference between them, because I see a lot of people on Twitter and Reddit and everything, that's kind of what they're posting. They're saying, oh, RotoWire projects this player for 32 points and his line is 30, so take that as an over. I don't really like projections, but they're a good tool to, a good feather in your cap, so to speak, something to look at to kind of get some plays to the top of your radar. So typically, if you're new here, we post these sheets for free on Thursdays in our Facebook group. The link is in the description. And as you can see here, there are usually 400 to 500 prize pick lines on the 4:30 p.m. Central Time update. In the morning, there's anywhere from about 120 to 250, depending on the slate. So let's go ahead and get started and look at these last 2 days. So you can see here, this is sorted by cheat gap, and I've been putting these results files on the website, in the chat, and in the Facebook group. I've been trying to do them every day since I'm on PTO, but typically I do them about 4 days a week whenever I have some extra time. So taking a look here at the cheat gap, we're going to sort this high to low. So these are our lines, and then these are the differences in the play. So we can look over here, we can see the results, and we ended up really good on this day. We were 23-7 over our top plays. So all of these ended up over. That was a really good day, 23-7. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, I like the last 7-day average. Now, it's not 7 game, it's 7 days. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this, because you can find out if a player is hot, if they're doing really well, if they're doing really cold. Typically, prize picks is really quick to catch up to the players that are hot and cold. They move quicker than an average site and their projections. But this gives us an opportunity for 1 to 3 days of good lines to take advantage of. So taking a look at these, you can see over here, they did pretty well too. I added them up. They were 24-9 over the top plays. So the hot players stayed hot and kept hitting. So now we're going to look at FanAlarm, FanPros, and Roto. So looking at the FanAlarm, they're one of my favorite projections recently. They've been doing really well, and we take a look over here, and for the most part, they did really good. There were some tough DVP spots up here, but they ended up 22-10. So that's pretty good. Considering the slate, the day, everything that was going on, 22-10 isn't bad. NBA is one of those things that's highly variable, and teams will crush everybody and then all of a sudden get beat by the worst team in the league by 20. So you got to keep that in mind. So FanPros is my least favorite projection. Typically, when we've been following this, they've been on the bottom end of all of ours over and over. They were consistently under 50% missing, but to these 2 days, they absolutely exploded. So keep an eye on that. You can see over here on the top half of the plays, they went 14-2. And then they kind of went 50-50 down here. But these top plays, 14 out of 16 is phenomenal. So we got an eye on them. We're going to keep watching them. The Roto projections, they ended up going 23-11, which is really good. Up here on the top end, they ended up 50-50. A lot of these are fantasy score differences, but we manually calculate those in the background. And then they went on a big tear for your normal non-fantasy score stats. So you can see a lot of points and rebounds. Usually points and assists are a big one that I follow as well. And you can see the ones up here, the tough ones that they did miss. It was a tough DVP spot. A couple of them got over, but a lot of them stayed under, so that's something to keep an eye on. So overall, the projections did really well on the 15th. Not too bad. We also have our hit rates over here in the corner, and then we have our game logs, which you can see the last 10 games. And if it is green, it went over. If it's red, it went under. And then you can sort by hit rate last 5, hit rate last 10. And then if there's any streaks, I like looking at those. So let's jump over and take a look at this next sheet. So this is 3/16. This is yesterday. So we're going to pull it up. Let me get it lined up for you here so everybody can see it. All right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at the cheat line first. We're going to sort this up by the cheat gap. And we're going to take a look over here. So overall, this was pretty good. We had a couple miss in the top, but ended up 19-7 over the top end of plays on the cheat line. So our line stayed consistent. I'm happy to see that. Typically, we're a little bit different than the projections, the way I come up with our scores. So we kind of figure in a little bit of DVP, recent success to kind of move it a little bit. So I'm happy with our lines, 19-7. That's another profitable day. And if nothing else, you can sort that by the cheat gap. And then, so I look at it as 19-7. So say the top 26 plays, if you randomly picked 3 out of there, you have pretty good odds of putting together a 3-leg card. Last 7-day average did really well. These players were hot. They stayed hot. You can see here they went 17-5. So that was really good. Now, typically this is very up in the air and you really have to dig in. So I don't recommend sorting by this and just picking players. You need to look and see, are they still playing the same amount of minutes? Are they projected for less minutes? Was someone out? Did Devin Booker miss 3 games? Then all of a sudden, you know, someone else came in and exploded for 3 games. So you have to keep an eye on that. Now we're going to look at our projections again. FanAlarm, FanPros, and Roto. So looking at FanAlarm, we're going to sort this here. They did pretty good, not too bad. Ends up 14-8. Anything over 55% is fair to take a look at. I'm not going to bash anyone on having bad projections, trying to figure all of these teams out and everything. That's good. 14-8, I'm happy with that. I'm going to come back to FanPros because I want to show you something. So we're going to take a look at Roto first. And they did really good on the top, 6-1 on their top 7 plays. And then when you scroll down here and go over it, well, they ended up 8-2 over the top 10, but then only 12-8 over the top 20. So not too bad, not great. But FanPros, yesterday we saw them explode. So we're going to take a look at them. Now, they don't do free throw made projections, so I got to filter this out. So let me get rid of the free throws made. Now, look at this. This is absolutely unbelievable. Look at all these overs across here. They end up going 20-2 on their top overs. So 20 out of 22 plays. Now, typically, that is phenomenal to see them go back-to-back days winning the projection battle between FanAlarm and Roto. Typically, it started off, Roto was really hot, and then we brought in FanPros, and FanPros got fire, and then they just crapped the bed, and then Roto was the king of the castle. And then I brought in FanAlarm, and FanAlarm was kind of king of the castle for a long time, and now we've got 2 days where FanPros has came back and exploded. Typically, what I recommend is if you find one of these sites that you like let's say FanPros, Roto, whatever it is, and you just stick with them. Every day you pick your lines off of them. You're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days. But what's even more impressive is look at some of these streaks on some of the games. So this one has been under 8 times, and they projected it to go over, and FanAlarm projected it under, and yet it flew over. And I mean, it's phenomenal. I don't know how they come up with some of this stuff. That's kind of impressive. So this one here had a 4 streak over. Oh, crap, you can't even see that. Sorry. So this one here, these are our streaks. So you can see FanPros on a lot of these overs that they hit, they had huge under streaks. And so they projected them to go over. And even when FanAlarms had a lot of these projected to go under, huge difference. And FanPros nailed it last night, so we're going to give them credit for that. So anyways, another thing I like to look at are these play suggestions. Now, these are not giving you a play. It's just kind of giving you a tip. If you don't want to look at numbers, if you're not a stats guy like most of us, you can come in here and say, okay, give me the ones that are 3 over projections. So these are the ones that are all 3 projection models are going over. And you can come in here, and I like to go back and sort this. Just put it so all the overs and unders are together to kind of see how they did. So looking at this, I've already added it up. Overs, they went 46-30. So not bad. Some of our projections in the cheat gap were better. But again, if it doesn't fall into one of the hot plays, then it falls into these 3 over, 3 under if all the projections meet. Now the 3 under projections, let's take a look at those. So they did really well. So these were the over plays, and these were the under plays. So this indicator means that all 3 sites projected it to be under, and they did really well. They went 29 and 11 unders for these. So the ones they had missed, you can kind of take a look at. And I always look at the player, kind of see what they did. I look at the DVP. But a lot of these players stayed under, so I was kind of impressed with that. But combined 75 and 41 for overs or unders. And then also we have our hot over, hot under, hot DVP over. So if it has hot in front of it, that's kind of the play. They're hot last 7, 2 of the 3 projections are over, and they have a good hit rate. So those are ones you can also take a look at as well. But again, it's just an indicator to point you in the right direction. It's not saying, hey, this is a lock, definitely play that. I think that's almost impossible to do in NBA unless you're actually doing some research. So to wrap up, the cheat line the last 2 days went 23 and 7, 19 and 7. The last 7 guys, showing the guys that are hot, went 24 and 9 and 17 and 5. Fantasy Alarm went 22 and 10 yesterday, or day before yesterday, 14 and 8 yesterday. Fantasy Pros on an amazing run, 14 and 2 on the 15th and 20 and 2 yesterday. And then Roto, 23 and 11, phenomenal 2 days ago. And then 8 and 2 on the top 10 yesterday, or 12 and 8 over the top 20. So right now, Fantasy Pros is hot. Cheat lines are staying consistent. So hopefully this helps you guys out with your prize pick and player prop research. Good luck, guys.